All right. Can we have the clock, please? So this is the third session about Project Yelper. We're going to build a phone app in this session. So in the previous session, we've built an API. Niels has built that API. Now we'll use that API to build our phone app for the Windows Phone 7 operating system. Now, for Windows Phone, you can build applications using two frameworks. You can either use XNA or you can use Silverlight. XNA is good for games, so that's not what we need. We need Silverlight. You might be wondering, what is Silverlight? Well, very quickly, web pages looked a lot like this at the beginning of the web. So text with links, later images. Then people wanted to add some rich data, like, for example, videos. So plugins emerged like Flash, for example. Silverlight is a plugin just like Flash. It is cross-browser. It works on all 5 big browsers. It works on all platforms, all big platforms. And now it is even cross-device. It works on Symbian S60, so the touch version of that, and the Windows Phone 7 devices. So, okay, enough theory. Let's just jump into a demo. The demo machine, okay. I'm going to do part of the design of this application, and then Niels is going to continue building the actual code behind the application. So I'm going to use Expression Blend for that. I have the phone tools installed, and I'm going to start a new project. It's a Windows Phone application. You can call it Yelper. Doesn't really matter. Okay. If I make this a bit smaller, so there's a page. It's a Silverlight page, which is built in XAML code. It's a format based on XML. And you can see there are some elements like a stack panel in there, but we don't really care about that for now. What we want is we want to make a control that we can use to display our list of tweets, because we want to do something similar as on the website this morning. We want to have like a public timeline on the first page. So let's go to the library, and this is actually a list, so let's use a list box for that. I can start searching list box. Okay, I have a list box. Drop it on this page, and then I can go to the properties, and I can, for example, set the margins to 0, because I want it to fill the page. Then set it to stretch, and maybe set the width to auto as well. Well, to auto, there's a button for that. Okay, so auto. Over here, there's the XAML. We can see that we have added this list box with margin 0. It gets translated into XAML. You could type the XAML yourself as well. Now, I have a problem, because I'm a designer, I want to design this application, but the actual data, the tweets or the Yelps as we call them, will come from our database, and I can't use those in Blend because, well, it will only work at runtime after Niels has written his code. So there's something in Expression Blend called sample data, and I'm going to use that to have some data to work with. I can add a new sample data source, and okay, use the standard name. And there are some properties in there. I'll add some more, so I have 4 properties, and I can give them a name. For example, the profile picture. So I can now continue giving those names. The message will need that as well. So we want to have just like on the website, the profile picture and then the message and the date. Okay, there we go. The message. What else do we need? The Yelp dates. And finally, the username of the person who has tweeted. So has Yelped it. So username. Okay. Doesn't really matter, the typo. String, so the message is a string. We want to use the lorem ipsum text for that, maybe 20 words or something like that. Then the username, maybe just 1 word. Can just drag that to 1. Then the Yelp date, well, that's a date or a time. Time is fine, just to have some sample data. And the profile picture is an image, of course. So if we take a look at the generated sample data, it's just a list of 10 records. I can increase this, but 10 is fine with me. It has a message from the lorem ipsum text, a profile, a sample picture, a name, and a date. Now we can just drag this collection to the list box. What this does is it data binds this collection to the list box, and then it also creates a template, because you've got to now a control in XAML or in Silverlight or in WPF can have several templates. The list box has 4 of them. One of them is the item template. So every item in the list will be rendered according to a template. What this has done, if I take a look at that template, I can go to additional templates, additional item, and then edit the current, so the created one. In there, there's a stack panel with 3 text fields and an image, or text blocks, as they are called. Now this is a stack panel. Stack panel just stacks those things. I can change that to a more powerful layout control, like the grid. Okay, and the grid can have some rows and some columns, and then we would be able to make this look nice. And I can also like change the font and then, well, maybe add some columns to this. First, I can search, which is very useful. There should be a column. I'm not in the grid, I guess. Yeah, the grid. There's column definitions. I can add like 2 columns. The first one is set to auto. Well, the other one set to auto as well. And then I can put this in the first column, which is 0, and put everything else in the second column, column 1. Okay, so I can do that and I can keep playing with that until it looks nice. One thing I could show is this isn't wrapped, so this is on one line and you can see it continues out of my window over here. So I don't really know what to change about that, but I know it's something with wrapping, so I just type wrap and I immediately see it's set to no wrap, so let's wrap that. And then I should probably tell this to use, well, there's something not right there. Well, yeah, I can keep playing with that to make it look good. It should actually, maybe it's the grid that isn't, yeah. Now it's set, okay. Well, okay, we'll keep playing with that and then you'll see in Niels's demo, he has done that, he has worked that a bit more and he has a nice layout. So we can all do that with Expression Blend. Now I'll give the floor to Niels.
All right, so I'm going to show you guys how we are going to create the application. So I'll be using this data template that Wouter has created. I'll mainly show you how we are going to code it, so how we are going to use the OData API and not so much how we are going to create the design behind it. So let me start up Visual Studio and both Blend. I have again a start application. It's just the application with the data template in it. I will show you guys what it actually contains. So let me go to Open Project, then Phone here. And I'll do the same thing in Visual Studio. I can also use Visual Studio and Blend easily together. It will automatically say when I switch one another to reload my solution. So it's very easy to use both of them together. So Phone and in here. All right. So this is our application. Here we have on the left side our solution with a few files in it. So first of all, we have a lot of PNGs. So these are some of default. This is default, for example. This is default. Then I got my own PNGs here, a few things. And this isn't so important. This is a bit more important, value converters. What this basically does, I'll just open up one, this one for example, and let's look a little bit at it. What this basically does is it takes a value and it converts it into another type. So you have something, for example, which has in date time, and you want to convert it into a string, but you want to do your own formatting on it. Of course, I want to be able to, let's say 3 seconds ago. It says 3 seconds ago, so I have to subtract it from my current time, things like that. I can easily put this in a value converter and then use it in data binding, which you will see a little bit later. So, said that, so these are value converters. I also got here a few resources in my app.xaml. I can view them here on the right under resources. Just press this. Here you see my converters, as I said before. I got a few color things, and I got my data template here. This is a thing that Walter created, and another style. This will make sure that when I select something in my list box that it isn't highlighted. So I don't want that. I just want it to click and go to somewhere else. I don't want it to be highlighted, so I can edit this style here. It's also the same way. Right-click on a list box, do edit templates, create new, for example, and you have that. And then I got already a page called public timeline. I'll just try to show a bit how it looks. It's got here a header, and then in here it got a list box which has a name. I think it's called public timeline list box probably. It's in here. All right, so what I want to do, I have these data templates. I want to bind them on my list box. So let's right click, again, edit additional templates, add in templates. Then I have apply resources here. I could also do create empty. I don't want that. I just click this one. So that's the one that Walter showed you guys. And then again, I have this style I talked about before, so also apply that resource. Just save this up. What I want to do now is I want to be able to actually get data from my OData feeds. So for this is coding. I go back to Visual Studio. It helps me a little bit more with highlighting, things like that. So just now you see that it didn't ask me to refresh. It's because the file that I edited wasn't open. If I would have public timeline open, for example, I just change it. It will say, hey, it has changed. Do you want to reload it or do you want to ignore it? So it doesn't say that for example. Okay. So I set OData feed. Now, normally I would go to references here, do add service reference. I get this dialog. This is what I should do normally when I use WCF data services. WCF services normal, not the data services, not the OData. The OData, we can't use this tool in the phone application. It's not yet implemented. But luckily for us, there exists a little command line tool. It's the same thing that this calls in the background, but we just have to do it on the command line. So I have it in the same folder. It's not that folder. Just go to my folder here. Then in here, just open it in command prompt. Right, so I got something here called data SVC util. So this is the utility that Visual Studio normally uses behind coding. So first thing I have to do is I have to specify the URI of my API, so where it's located. For now, I'll be using the local host. So just type localhost and then Yelper API. So it's a completed API, the same one as I created before, but this time it's in Yelper API, not Yelper.api. And then Yelper data service.svc. All right, the next thing I have to do is I have to say, I'm going to use data service collections. This is something I'll show a little bit later in the implementation. Then I have to specify the version of OData. Maybe some of you have noticed that in the OData implementation there was a little thing on the bottom called V2. It's the version that we are going to use of OData. We use V2, so I have to say here version, it's there, 2.0. And then I also have to say I want it to be output this file that I'm going to create to Yelper service.cs. Press enter. It says generation complete, so it has generated proxy classes for me. So it has generated Yelp user and some other classes so that I am able to connect to my API. All right, so you see it here. If I'll just show you guys, it's Yelper service.cs. Let's go back to Visual Studio and include this file in my solution. Oh, not there. It's this button, show all files. And then in here I have my Yelper service.cs just included in my project. So let's double click it. And you see a lot of coding. It's not important code. You see here, for example, I have something lambda tag ID. I have my create lambda tag. I have a lot of functions. You also see these dashed lines. It's because I have to add a reference. Let's do that one first. So it's the OData client reference. So as I said before, OData isn't implemented in the default package of Phone 7. You can download it on odata.codeplex.com. I think these utilities and this DLL. So let's go there. It's the client. So this one. I also see here that my toolkit is referenced wrong. Let's just not end. I want to delete that one and add the right one. So it's also in this folder here. It's toolkits. The toolkits is something with additional design things like a progress bar, for example, things like that. All right, I have this. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to access my OData feed, as I said. So I'm going to write a little wrapper around these classes here because they are a little bit hard to use. So let's just create, I'll hide all files. Let's just create a new class. Let's call it Yelper app. And I'm going to create a constructor first because I'll be needing it. So public Yelper app. Just create that one. And I have to load a few snippets, otherwise it will be a lot of coding. So in there, topmost off. Let's start by adding a few fields. So press F5. Here I have my constant string, my API location. I'm going to change this into localhost/Yelper API. Then I have my Yelper entities. This is what's in here. So what my data SVC util has created. Let's just do the using. It's in Yelper.api, so it's in the same namespace as my actual API. So that one include. And then here I got data service collection. Remember I said I had to use this parameter. If I don't use it, this will fail to be using this thing. So again, include it. All right. Now, of course, I have to set something here. It's null for now, so I'm going to create an object in my constructor for that. So go to constructor here, paste it in there. Just I have here new data service collection. Then here I call context. This context is basically my connection to my API. So it's created here. It's all this. And then here I'm going to do something on load completed. Let's just again go here, have public timeline, paste it in there, and I have two new functions, one called load completed, another one called load public timeline asynchronously. So we're going to use asynchronously, not synchronously, because we don't want our UI thread to lock up. All right, so I also have a Boolean here called isPublicTimeline loading, because I don't want to do two loadings at the same time. If one of them is running in the background, it also won't work. It will actually throw an exception. So just add this check. In this case, it's not thread safe. If I were to go in it and two separate threads, it could actually get in my load asynchronously. But I know from my application, I never use two different threads to call this function, so I can do this. Of course, if you actually use it, it's better to implement some kind of mutex or a lock on it. All right, we got that. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to access this function from within my public timeline. So I'll have to add it somewhere. Let's add it. I have to add a reference. I have to do a new Yelper app somewhere so that I can, everywhere in my application, I will be able to access this wrapper function. So I add it in my class here. I'll add a static field because I don't need more than one, and it can very easily be static. So let me just do public static Yelper app equals new Yelper app. All right, I got that. So I can exit from everywhere in my application. I can just do app.Yelper app, and I get my Yelper app in here. All right, so I got that. Now I want to be able to actually bind this onto my data list box. So my list box I had before, I want to map my Yelps on that list box, and then it will automatically format it with the data templates. So let's go to public timeline here, and let's just do in here. I can, let's say it was public timeline listbox dot item source. And let's just say equals app.Yelper app dot then public timeline. So I can bind this data service collection onto an item source. All right, so I have that. Of course, I have to load actually the data. I think I forgot also to show you guys here that I'm using an URI. So I'm not doing public timeline.yelps or a link thing. I can't use it in the phone because there's a little bug in the link interpreter on the phone. And every other .NET application it works. So I can actually just, instead of this URI, I can just start by saying, I think it's also in here, public timeline.yelps. Oh no, it's not. But it's normally I can say public timeline.yelps, and then I can say select top 20, for example. I can do things like that. Here it doesn't work. Of course, remember I showed you guys link path, so I can type in my link and my link path, and then it will generate this URI for me. So I can do it that way around. All right, back to my public timeline. I said I want to load some data. So let's create a function, private voids. Let's call it reloads. Reload timeline. And then things I can't type anymore. Let's just do app.yelper app dot load public timeline asynchronously. All right, I got that. Remember I said I had a progress bar in my thing, so I want there to be a progress bar on the top of my screen, which goes again back and forward, saying it's loading data. So it's loading progress bar dot is indeterminate, and I just say equals true here. And when it's done loading, I have to say equals false. You see here it's already there. I just have to add a handler. So let's do public timeline, no, not there, app.yelper app dot public timeline dot load completed. So this gets called when the load is completed equals new. Then I got that. Then it's this function down here, just uncomment it. Just paste it in there. Normally it will. I could also just use new, but I did it this way around. All right. Only plus equals. All right. So I'll build not that. I'll build it. It says build succeeded. But I have to do one more thing. I have to set my startup page. Default, it will be on mainpage.saml. So if I were to launch my application now, it should search for a mainpage.saml. Of course, I don't have it. I deleted it when I created this solution. It's public timeline.saml, my startup. So I'll go to app.saml in here. It's no, not there. It's in properties here. My app manifest. I meant. Then here I have something called default task. I got a navigation page, so I want to change this into public timeline. In the real application, we use URI mapping. I'm not going to discuss that today. It would be a little bit too much to show you guys, but it's simple, and I think I'll write about it on my blog, little blogs. So I have this, so let's test it. I'm going to use the emulator for now. Just start it up. So it will launch my emulator. It will automatically deploy my zap so my zap is the thing it creates onto my emulator, and it will attach a debugger onto it. So it's actually loading, and it should show me my API, but it doesn't. So I'll have to check why it doesn't actually. Okay, I think I know why. I forgot to call reloads. So let me just, I don't have to stop it actually. I can just change it in here. Of course, I have to call it somewhere. So let's say debug, stop debugging. Let's just go to my public timeline in here. I want on the loaded event of my page. So let's go to properties. On my page, I want it to be events, then loaded. Now I want it to reload my timeline. All right, let's start it up again. Again, it will deploy, and now it should actually show me some data. Now, where is this? It's here. So this is the data from my API, and it's automatically formatted with this value thing I showed you guys. So it changes the date into the timestamp, so how many times ago it was. All right, so we got that. What I want to be able to do also is I want to be able to check my credentials. So I'll show you guys how we are going to do this. This is a little bit more tricky. I'm not going to use something. I'm actually going to just send standardized HTTP web requests. So I'm going to do an own request for myself. So stop debugging. Again, go to my wrapper here, my Yelper app, and I'll add a function here. I hope it's in my snippet. It's just in here. It's called first this. So in my header again, a few fields, just paste it in there. And I'll have to add a using probably. So let's do that first. And then again, oh, not that. This, and then paste it there. So this is quite a large function. Again, I'll scroll through it a bit to explain you guys what it actually does. So I have a function called check credentials asynchronously. Again, asynchronously. It takes a username and a password. So what does it do? It creates me an HTTP web request to my timeline. So I know that my timeline will actually throw a 401 exception if I'm not logged in. So it will actually return a 401 response, I mean. And I'll ask for the top 0 Yelps because I don't want any data to be returned. I just wanted to check whether or not I'm authenticated. Then I got here something called rec.begin_get_response. This will start a response asynchronously. And then it will return here this function. So it's an anonymous function. This will get called when the get response has a response. So in there, I'll just check whether or not the status code was status code okay. If it was, I know it's okay. So I logged in successfully. So I set the username, the password. I created these fields here when I included them. And if it didn't, I'll just do onCheck credentials completed. This is an event that will get thrown whenever credentials are completed, and I'll say new exception. I won't specify it. I could if I want to, but just for a demo, I won't do that. And if it succeeded, I will just pass a null here. All right, so I have that. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to use this, of course. So I have a page in there, login.xaml. Included in my project. Going to just save something here. It's actually so that my solution has changed. So it's here. My blend will say that it has changed my CS project. So as you can see, it says I have to reload a few things. So I'm going to show you guys this login. No, it's not in there. Just let me open up that, save this, go back there, try it again. Now it's in there. All right. So I have this login page. I also added a default thing, so every time I have to debug, otherwise I have to type this my username and my password in it. It's very irritating. So I just put it in there. And here I have button login. On there, there's an event, button click. Actually, I should call it login button click. I think it's a lot beautiful, but not that important. So when I click it, I'm going to say s_enabled equals false. So I'm going to disable my button so they don't just press it and they see that actually it is loading in the background. And I'm going to start the progress bar again. If I've done that, I'm going to call this function, check it asynchronously. Then what I'm going to do when this page loads first is I'm going to couple an events handler on this event that I created whenever an check credential completed returns. And this events handler is down here. All right, so what I do first, I set my progress bar, I stop it. And please notice I have to do dispatcher.begin_invoke. What this does is it invokes, so the onCheck credentials completed actually comes from the network. It comes from another thread. So if I were to change this here without first invoking back to my UI thread, it could crash. But so it could do funny stuff. And in the older versions of .NET, you could just ignore it. Now it will throw an exception and say, hey, you have to invoke first. So make sure you do that. Otherwise, it will say something like a cross-thread exception or something like that. All right, so I'll check whether or not my error is null. Remember that I set my error to null if the thing logged in successfully. So if it isn't null, I have to do something, for example, show an error box. If it actually isn't null, it means if it is null, I mean it succeeded. So what I'm going to do here, if this save credential is on, I could save my username. Again, I don't have a lot of time. So it will be on Codeplex. I'm not going to show it today. Let's just say when I'm logged in, I want to. I just go back to Visual Studio. It will be a little bit easier to show. Oh no, it's in my CS. So it's there. Scroll down here. I'll just say it's in the right spot. Yeah, navigation service. application service.navigate. So when I'm logged in, I want to navigate to another page. Let's say something I can do only as an authenticated user. So let's say, for example, I go to a page called New Yelp. So I'm able to Yelp something. Normally in the application, I would go to another page with my private timeline or something. But I want to show you guys as much as possible. So I'll just go to New URI. And I'll have something called New Yelp.xaml. Oh, XAML. And it's a URI kind.relative. All right. Got one more thing. Got that. So it will go to new Yelp.xaml when I'm logged in successfully. Otherwise, it will just stop my progress bar, and I'll see, oh, the progress bar stopped. I didn't change from page, so my credentials are probably wrong. Normally, I would just do this error box. So I have that. Also, I have a little problem. Oh, not that way. Just retouch it. I'm not able to go to a login page because I don't have any button for it. So let's add a button. I'll go to blend here, reload it, all right. And then it's in my public timeline here. I go to just to the XAML code itself. And here I'll make a little room, go to my snippets, and take my application bar snippet. So this will create an application bar. For those of you who know the Phone 7, it's a little bar on the bottom. I'll show it to you with the buttons and menu bar items. Just show it you guys, go to design. And in here, this is my bar. I want to add a few buttons to it. Well, actually, they are already added, but they don't have any pictures, so I have to do that first. Let's add a picture to it. I have to check this is login. So I have an image not in there. It's in my folder on my desktop. I have an image called the log.png, which is just a log. It's a nice picture to add for a login. It's in there. So I have that one. And in here, let's just go to this. These are built-in pictures. There's something refreshed normally. Just search it here, refresh. All right, so there they are. So I'll just try to show it. Works with. So these are my buttons, and there's a text on it. Normally you see login, refresh. So I have that. I have to add an event handler again on this button click. So let's go there. Here, click. Probably, oh no, first call this login button, for example. Just then double click it. It creates an event handler for me. Just go back, do the same for my refresh. Call it refresh button. Again, double click here. It has created these event handlers. And now let's go back to Visual Studio. Just hide a little bit of these things. All right, so I have my event handlers as not there in my public timeline. I have my event handlers. So here I want to go to my login page. So you know how it works. Navigation service. Navigation service.navigate to a new URI. Then let's just it was login.xaml, and it's relative. Oh, not relative. All right, so I have that. When I press refresh, let's implement that also. Remember, I had a function reload timeline. Just call that function. I can press refresh as much as I would like. I remember that I had this check whether or not it's refreshing, so I don't have to do any check in here in my event handler. I know that my wrapper will take care of that. So I am going to check whether or not this builds and deploys to my phone. I hope so, otherwise I did something wrong. So these buttons, you can look at them. Click refresh. You probably won't see the progress bar on the top. It will be too fast because it's localhost, but it actually works. If I were to set a breakpoint here and there, you would see that it actually calls this function. So, or it doesn't. All right, so I think there's something wrong with my event handlers. Let's go and check that one out. Okay, I want to do that. And here I have my click events. All right, so they aren't bound to them. Let's just go in my stop debugging first. Let's go in my properties. My press here. My events. Then button click. This was my login, so login button there, and refresh button there. Let's retry it. All right, so go there, refresh. Oh, just set my breakpoint again. Refresh, and it breaks there. So if it were to the internet, you probably would see the progress bar. And if I'll press login, I will go to my login screen, of course. So I got it here, I got my username and password in it. If I click login, it will go to a page called new Yelp.saml. I haven't included yet, so it probably will crash. All right, so it crashed. So let's include my new Yelp.saml. Stop debugging first. Again, I have it already in my folder. I can just go through it by doing show all files. And then go, where is it? It's in here, include in projects. I'll show it in Blend. It's a little easier to show you these kind of files. Probably won't have loaded this new Yelp in it. It's because my solution file didn't change, and my solution file contains all the files that are actually added to my solution. So if you just open properties, you see now just press save, and now it will say your CS project file has changed, and now my new Yelp is there. All right, so I have a button again, and I have a little text box here on top where I'm going to type in my Yelp. I think there's already an event handler on the button. Let me check that one. Here, properties, event. So I have this event handler. Go back to Visual Studio now that you've seen this layout. All right, so what it does is when the page loads, it just focuses my text box so I can immediately start to type. And then it sets some design stuff. Not really that important. Then on my bar icon button, I want to be able to, when I press it, I want to save it to my database. For this, I won't add a wrapper. I'll just show you guys how you do it without the wrapper. So by directly calling the context object without the data service collection. So of course, I have to add a property here. Remember the context I talked about before, the connection to my API. So I have to add a property. So let me just do public, it's Yelper entities, context, and then let's say I want to be read-only property. So let's do return context. All right, so I have that one. Let's relook it up here, and you see the problem has resolved itself here. So I have on this context, when I press dot, I have something called add object. This means that I'm going to add an object to an entity set. And I want to add something to the entity set Yelps. Basically, it's the only entity set where I have rights on if I'm logged in. So it's one more thing I have to do, remember it. And here I create this new Yelp called message text box. Yeah, it's a lot of things. Then I replace this hash with a lambda. And then I'll call just begin save changes. Again, this is asynchronously. It will call back to a function. For this time, I extracted the function. It's not an inline function, just to show you guys that you can do it also this way around. You don't have to use inline functions if you think this is more pretty. Then again, I'll just do end save changes if it succeeded. So there's a try catch around it. If it succeeded, I clear my text box. Normally, I would just go back to another page or something. Just in this demo, I will clear this text box. Otherwise, I won't do a thing. Okay, although normally I would do also something, but in my case, I won't. Remember, I said login. So you would think everything is going to work now. I logged in, I did all my stuff, but I forgot actually to add a handler to my context. So I didn't send my credentials through my API, so it doesn't know that I'm logged in. My phone application knows, but my API, I don't send my username and my password for it. So I'm not sure if I have it in here. I hope, yeah, it's there. Let me paste that in there. So it's a little event handler. So I have to add this event in my constructor. Where is it? It's there. So let's say context dot. What was it? It was sending request plus equals, and that one. So what this does is it adds an authorization header to my HTTP request, and it basically says I'm using basic auth, and these are my username and password. So let's launch it up and hope it works. All right, so I have to search where it is. It's here. Login, credentials. Go to this page. Yelp something. Just press there. It cleared, so I know it's cleared. So I can just restart it. And then I'm just going to check whether or not it's in here, test. So it's what I just yelped 7 seconds ago. So this is how we use our API. This concludes this demo. Also, I'm going to show you what we can actually create if we spend a little more time on it. So I will show it on my phone. So let me just try you guys to show it. All right. So I'll launch up my phone. Go back here. Then I got this. I hope just zoom in a little bit. All right. Focus. I hope. All right. So I got Yelper. So this is the application. I got a startup screen, and here I got my public timeline. So it's loading now. I didn't add. I hope you can see it. Yeah, it's visible. So I got all my Yelps. I think the latest 30 I have in this application. Then I'm logged in already because I used the Remember Me feature. I have my timeline here. It's my own timeline that I created before. I have mentions. So these are all the people that mentioned me actually. Then I also have an about page because every application needs one, of course. And I can do new Yelp. Then I can just type something, press new Yelp. No, there will be a bunch of crap on the site, I think. All right, so it Yelped that. If you were to check the site, you would see it has actually Yelped it. I can also, let's say, sign out. Now again, sign in. It will show me my login page again. This isn't because Remember Me was on. It's because I wanted to show you guys without actually showing you guys my password. So I typed it in before. I can use Remember Me. It will automatically remembers me. Press login. You'll see the progress bar over there. And again, I'm logged in. I could also quit it. Go to it. It all works. So it will automatically reload my login. It will recheck whether or not I was logged in. It will retry it, and you can see here my timeline is again loaded. One more thing that I have, I see that I pressed the button a little bit too much. It's 3 times actually on it. I can also, I have to search if I have one with here I have one. So I can press a Yelp, and then I get this little overview, and you see here that this is clickable. So I can press it. It will open up my IE browser on my phone, and it will load this page. Let me just go back. And it will again go back to the application and show this again. So I can actually Yelp from my Windows phone. All right, so I close this up. This concludes my demo on the Windows phone. And now I'm going to give the word to Jeroen, who will talk a little bit for us.
Okay, so thank you, Niels. Actually, Niels has shown us over the past few minutes, well, more than a few minutes, we have seen that it's actually pretty simple to create our own Windows Phone application. So, first thing today, you learned about the cloud. How easy is it to move to the cloud? Well, actually, it's pretty easy. For instance, our database, when it's moving on SQL Express, we can easily move it to the cloud. On Codeplex, you can find something called the SQL Azure Migration Wizard. It's actually just a program, you run it, you point it to the correct place, and then it does everything for you, it copies all data, and it just works. Then, for the website and the API, those things are by default supported actually by the Windows Azure platform. You just add them to a cloud project, you publish them to the cloud, and it will work like a charm. So, what if you want to do this? Well, you can actually. You can and you should. So, first of all, the first part of today, you can find all the tooling on microsoft.com/web. There you've got a little program called the Windows Web Platform Installer. You just download it, and then you can just check what software that you want to install. There you've got the MVC3 update, you've got SQL Server Express, Visual Studio Express, and it's just all for free. The Windows Phone presentation, well, you actually can do it yourself as well. You just browse to create.msdn.com. There you can download all the tooling, and as a student using DreamSpark, you can submit your applications for free. So actually, you can start earning money as of today. So, what if you want more? We all have blogs, and in the next few days, weeks, maybe months, we will be publishing some articles in detail on how we created some of the features that we couldn't cover today. Those will be more in-depth and will more explain, well, really, the internals of the system. On Codeplex, the entire project will be available, so we will try to get it on tonight, or else it will be certainly tomorrow. And you can go there, download the entire project, including the phone app, the API, and you can just view the codes and play with it. Oh yeah, one more thing.
Thank you, Jeroen. So, due to all the media attention the last week, we have decided to continue on with Project Yelper. Summer 2011, we will release our next big version, so stay tuned. We actually have some time left, so we would like to do something interactive, like a Q&A. I have some wireless microphones. And we also have some gadgets to give away. I think we have some USB sticks over here.
Yeah, we have USB sticks for all the ones who have an interesting question.
So, any questions? Don't be shy. It's like the full, I don't know how many gigabytes.
Okay, there's a question. The first one is mostly the hardest, so
let's hope it.
There you go.
How do you think you can compete with Twitter? So it's actually a replica of Twitter you built, right?
Well,
so how do you think you can compete with Twitter?
I think our intent isn't to compete with Twitter. What our main intent is first of all, we're going to really finish the website. So we're going to create a copy of Twitter as we can get it. So actually make the website feature complete, what it actually isn't at the moment. At the moment, we do have several bugs that we discovered during the last week, when actually users started using the web service. And after that, I think we are going to focus not on competing with Twitter, but just making an open source framework and really using as much best practices as possible. So really keeping it open source and giving it as a learning experience.
Okay, so who's next? Over there.
Thank you. Do you want to start earning money with this project, or is respect more important at the moment?
Well, I think when the three of us started this project, none of us had actually the intent to start earning money with it. So the thing that we just want to do is, well, actually respect is the thing that we want. Well, not really respect. We just want to get a community around it and enhance it as much as possible, just to make sure that everybody can learn from it and everybody can contribute to it. So if any one of you should be interested in developing a new feature or helping out, just let us know. And we just want to create the first community-based and community-developed social network.
You are talking about a second version. Do you have any ideas on what you're going to implement on the new version?
Well, in the phone application, there will be a feature to search. I think mainly in the first search for lambda tags. It's not implemented yet. Also a profile page I will try to add. You can click a user's profile, see its Yelps. And of course that you can go through a lot of Yelps, not only the top 30, but actually through all of them, of the users. I don't know for the website, you guys?
Well, we see a lot of suggestions from our early users, like there's no delete button. Well, small things, so we would like to add those things first, so then we see. Don't know really.
Well, I think indeed first the small enhancements, and I think then we will see, and we will just try to find cool things. And if you have any suggestions, well, let us know, because it's also your thing. Okay, anyone else?
One of Twitter's largest problems is scaling. So you just took a web framework. How do you think it will handle scaling? Will you need a lot of new development for that?
Well, scaling is indeed the biggest issue. At the moment, we haven't foreseen the success, actually. And at the moment, scaling isn't really an issue. But when we are looking to the bigger picture, scaling is actually our biggest problem. So I think to make the scaling actually work, we will need to start looking at recreating the website. Well, not entirely recreating, but looking at how can we handle the scaling. Because at the moment, we can just move to Windows Azure and we can get 100 instances. So then it would kind of scale. Well, it would be kind of costly also. A lot costly. But it isn't actually scaling. Scaling actually means that we should look at our application and find bottlenecks and make improvements there. So scaling is indeed our biggest issue, and I think for that we will need to really investigate how we can scale. But scaling is also the biggest opportunity, because at the moment, when you look at online open source projects and things like that you can't find much actually about scaling, especially not when you're talking about really big websites. So it would be cool to find their best practices and share them with the world.
There's more over here.
How did you come up with the name Yelper?
Well, we actually went to Wikipedia, because you know Twitter is the sound a bird makes to tweet in English. So we went to Wikipedia and we looked up bird sound, animal sounds, and we found that a fox actually yelps, so we chose to use that because Yelper sounds quite nice as a name. So it's just the link with Twitter. So it's a joke, actually. Okay.
How many hours did you spend programming the initial project?
Well, it's kind of hard to really express it in hours, since most of the time it was just like one evening, the three of us get together and it was like we were programming. But I think in time frame, in months, we spent like 2-3 months actually developing it. But 2-3 months is actually, besides our work for school, other projects that we were working on. So I think in actually work weeks for 3 persons, I think maybe 2-3 weeks max.
No, I think 2 is quite realistic.
But it's kind of hard to say because, well, yeah, it's not really we just didn't look at it. It's just like, well, yeah, 1 hour more or less.
There's one more question here.
What made Twitter so popular, I believe, are smartphones. I'm over here. So I think you got that by making that Windows Phone 7 application. But let's face it, you're looking at a user base of, what, 5 people? Are you planning an application for Android and iOS as well?
Well, one of those 5 people is actually at this moment busy working on Android application. So I think it isn't our thing to develop the Android and iPhone application, but since we have a public API, if one of you is an iOS developer, well, you can develop the application. So I should say, go get busy.
Yeah, maybe on odata.org you can find libraries for basically every programming language, every big programming language to use OData. Also, we are looking into creating a normal WCF REST service using XML and JSON. So there will probably come a few other APIs besides an OData API.
I think it's the same story as Twitter. Twitter doesn't create all of those applications. They are created by users and third parties like companies like Seismic, who build applications.
You have a very complicated file structure. What processes you use to document it?
You mean the source, or?
Just how you keep an oversight of the complicated structure.
Do you mean the structure of the website of the phone application, or?
Just the general structure of the entire project. Did you document this in a... How did you document this to avoid confusion between the three programmers?
Well, for a starter, every program is in a separate CS project. It's in a separate namespace. I think that's the first thing. Also, I think Jeroen and Wouter basically could know how the web site is internally, how it works, how the folder structure is. And, well, the API is, let's face it, just 5 files or something, so that's not a problem. And yeah, the phone application is just in the basic folder. We have all those XAMLs. Okay, I could probably replace my wrappers in another folder, but we didn't really document the structure internally of one project. But we do have separate projects for the API, the phone app, the web, things like that.
Well, I think MVC, talking about the website, is pretty structured in its very nature. It's the separation between the models, the views, the controllers, really is a structure.
Why didn't you use MVVM pattern on the client side?
For the phone app, you mean?
Yes.
Well, this is a demo, and you should check out the actual phone app on Codeplex when it comes up. It's used a little bit more. So maybe sometimes I didn't use it entirely, but for the demo I really wanted to show you guys basically OData in the phone, and not as much the design and the bindings and the MVVM thing of Silverlight. So I really want to show OData.
I think MVVM is definitely something worth watching, but it's still a young pattern. There are some issues with it as well. And actually this app is fairly simple, so you could use MVVM certainly, but we've chosen not to.
How do you plan to let it work together with your schoolwork?
For starters, that's the reason why we now said summer, because now we have our finals. Well, I just think in the evenings, things like that probably, and also we hope to have a community which helps us a little bit out, creating features, and I don't know.
Well, I think we can definitely do small things like from now to the end of June, the end of our exams, but of course we need to focus on that right now as well, a lot.
I think no more questions.
I think we had a few down there.
Are there? Okay.
Did you have a lot of problems switching from the Windows platform to the Windows phones?
You mean from the website to the phone, or?
Yeah, from the plain website to the phone.
Well, it's basically a completely separate project, because the website directly uses the database, and it actually doesn't use the API, for example. And yeah, it's actually completely different. If we were to use, for example, Silverlight application or WPF application on our for just the desktop, we could reuse things, but you just have to change minor things that are phone specific, I mean. But yeah, now it's completely different. It's a website and a phone application.
So your databases aren't connected. The phone users can't read the normal website.
Yeah, it's the same database, but the phone uses our API, and the website just communicates with the database itself.
Okay, I have another question. Is this just a start of a trend for you guys to take popular closed source internet phenomenons and make open source version of it, or are you going to stay with Yelper and perfectionize it and add features?
Well, what's in a name? We can now call it Yelper and add features that are more like Facebook features, or stick with the Twitter story. Are we going to start other projects right away? I don't think so. There's a lot of work to do on this one. But it shouldn't stay what it is right now. It can go a bit broader as well. Does that answer the question?
I think we had it. Thank you. Big applause for these three guys for a fantastic project. I wish them a lot of success.